Uh, just a little note, I apologize in advance if a toddler comes in with a mini request or tantrum or, or anything. I got
I've
my
got
work from home office going in the back, so.
my own toddler. I know we're all suffering the same challenges these days. My own toddler is 20 and barely talks to me, but
Ah,
but I do have two small puppy dogs that like to bark at inopportune moments. So I'll probably, if you hear that, my apologies for that. I'll mute myself.
yeah, no
So
worries.
we have 2 minutes left, and let me do a little preamble here. So, greetings, everybody. Welcome to our Bluebeam training. All of you are aware of our changing world that we live in and the need that the city of Ventura has to go as much as possible digital. And Bluebeam is one of those steps along the way, a very important step. I'm Kurt Bell. I'm the project manager for the EnerGov and the DHD project. Bluebeam is part and parcel of our overall EnerGov electronic solution for the city. This training in particular is not related to EnerGov necessarily, but will help those of you that are going to be working in EnerGov. For the benefit of our speaker, or our trainer, April McCall, she is joining us today from Kellar Pacific, their vendor from whom we purchased our Bluebeam licenses. April is what do your coworkers call you? The Bluebeam go-to person? What is it?
The Blue Beam Queen.
The Bluebeam Queen, right? April is the
Yeah.
Bluebeam Queen. And I'm going to be turning over to her in just a second. We have a lot of people in the room, so maybe I'll just do a kind of a large I don't know, April, if you want to go around the room and get individual introductions, that's fine, but I'll just let you know that we basically have representatives from the various city departments that are responsible. These are the people that will be responsible to do plan checking and document review and the like. And I'm sure you're familiar with how municipalities like how they work insofar as someone wants to build an addition on their home and they submit the blueprints. And these are the people that help facilitate all of that. We have various departments
Nice.
represented here. Yeah. Everybody, this is a 3-day session. We'll be going from 8:45 each morning, starting at the session at 9 o'clock. That's 15 minutes to clean up any technical issues. Then 3 hours, and then we'll take a break and then begin the next day. I'm going to go ahead and hand over now to April, and I'll mute myself. And if any of you, if you can please mute your own microphones during the presentation and just unmute when needed, then that will help to have a nice continuity of flow. Thank you, April. It's over to you.
All right, guys. Hi, good morning to everyone. I hopefully everyone has their data files prepared. This is going to be the folder structure. Wait, let me make sure you guys are seeing my screen here.
I need to make you the presenter. So
There we go.
let me do that real quick. Oh,
Okay.
you've got it. Good.
Okay, great. Okay, so this is the folder structure here. It has it. We talked about the basic training. I gave Kurt the outline. He said that looks great. There's two things on the outline that are not there that I'm going to show you. And it could be sort of like a presentation style part of this. Document compare and overlay pages. It is part of a different course called document management, but I think it's kind of a important thing just to kind of show you that it's there, and it's pretty neat. So these two are not part of the course, but part of what I'm going to show you. We're going to start by going over the interface, and we're going to talk about, you know, how to get around Bluebeam, where to find stuff. And so basically that's where we're going to start with. And let me just minimize this presenter screen here. And if you guys have questions along the way, feel free to just ask me as they come to you. I'm not going to be monitoring the chat window, but I think Kurt is, so thank you. All right, here we go. All right, I got that minimized. I'm still going to have to move it around a little because it's kind of on the screen still. Okay, this is Bluebeam, and somebody else just arrived. Okay. All right, along the top here, these are going to be our drop-down menus. And in the drop-down menus are various, sorry, I hope I will be all right with one. Oh, okay. For the, I'm going to do my best to go as slow as possible I just seen something pop up in the chat. For those of you that don't have two monitors, it might be a little more difficult in some things, but I will do my best to kind of go slow and then maybe do things again for those of you. If you're unable to follow along or something happens to where you need me to back up and do it again, just let me know and I will gladly back up and repeat the steps that you need. Okay, so again, along the top, we have the drop-down menus. Some of these things are grayed out, and that's because right now we do not have a document open. Along the left-hand panel here, this is called the panel access. And as you click on the different features and functions, you'll see the panel change with the settings and the properties for each one of those objects. If I click on it again, it closes the panel. Another thing that you have the ability of doing is adjusting the panel with the Bluebeam, is what I call that. It's kind of like a little joke right there. Along the right-hand side, now it's kind of hard to show you because I'd like to get that GoToMeeting thing. There it is, along the top. Now on the right-hand side, we have something called toolbars. Now those are also grayed out because I do not have a file open. So we're all going to go ahead and open up the first file together so that you guys can be clicking along and you can see how everything lights up once a file is open. So file, we're going to go all together, go to the file menu and go down to open. And when we do, we're going to go to our desktop and we're going to open up the Bluebeam basic training files. And in there are some file structures that I kind of set up in the order of which we're going to be using them. So the first thing I'd like to do is double click in the O1 interface navigations and profiles. I have some training files in here that we typically use during the trainings. So we'll go ahead. Some files we may not use. I may have just threw those in there for other types of classes. So for today, let's just click on the Airport Project Combined set. And everybody should have this open here. All right, so notice how once the document's open, the drop-down menus now are lit up so we can perform some of these functions here. Okay, and then along the right-hand side, we have the toolbars that now are lit up that we can use also. Okay, along the bottom here, there's also another, this is called the navigation bar along here. And then just below that is a status bar. Now, out of the box, by default, the status bar is typically not turned on. So the first thing we're going to do together is we're going to turn that status bar on. Now, the shortcut key for the status bar is F8. But some people don't want to have to remember F8, so I'm going to show you where to find that status bar to turn it on and off. So we're going to go up to the Tools drop-down menu. And along the bottom, we have Toolbars. And it's right there on top, Status Bar. And just directly next to that, you see the shortcut key for that. So everybody turn on your status bar, please. Okay, so you can just go over there and click that like so. All right, that brings this bar right here. This, if you're wondering what this exactly does, this allows you to turn on a grid, snap to the grid, snap to content, snap to markup, reuse markup, and split screens. So as we go along, we'll use a few of these. Okay, so I'll show you the functionalities though. So we're still in the interface and navigation part of the class. So along the bottom here, right here in the lower left-hand side is the markups drop down or fly out or panel, I should say. And as I hover over it, you can see the blue beam here. So below we have a markups list, and I believe as plan checkers, you're going to be using this markups list a lot. Okay. I know the DSA, they require Bluebeam. The markups list is mandatory. So we'll spend a good amount of time in the markups list when that section comes up. It can also be controlled with this button here. Okay. One other thing that has to do with the interface is here. Along this top bar here, you can see the properties bar. Now this is a dynamic properties bar, which means if I activate a tool, so for example, I'm just going to show you how this behaves. We're not doing any tools quite yet, but just watch how this works. As I click on a tool, notice how that bar changes along the top. This is a properties bar, and it allows me to change the properties of each tool. Notice how I go down, the properties for the pen, the properties for the Cloud Plus, the properties for the callout, and so on. These properties that are that populate above are also available right over here in the properties bar, or panel, I should say. Okay, so these are the same. If you kind of need to know what you're working with up here, you may want to start over here in this properties panel here, because it's a little more clear what exactly that you're changing. So you may want to, get comfortable with this properties panel and then start utilizing this, because this dynamic properties bar is really a quick go-to, and it's great. Okay, so I'm going to hit escape to end the tool that I just activated. Where can I find the airport plan? Okay, Brett, the airport plan is in the O1 interface and navigation profile folder. This is in the Bluebeam Review 2019 basic training files that I sent out yesterday. And it is right there under airport project. Sweet. Okay. So one thing I want to point out is notice how I've activated that cloud from that toolbar. Now, things to kind of be aware of is, one, you could see the properties bar on the left-hand side is lit up. You could see the cloud is lit up, and you could also see that the cursor has a little mini cloud next to it, right here. So that's showing you that we're in a tool. My favorite and best go-to key is the escape key, because once you hit the escape key, it'll end the tool and get rid of it. So if you change your mind or you don't want to actually use that tool, you hit escape. When I do so, notice how the properties change along in the panel and along the top. These are the document properties. So you can see the metadata associated with this plan. And some things like this, my computer's a little bit new, so we haven't quite gotten everything dialed in. So my graphics are a little messed up on just very few features, but yours should be fine. Okay, so yeah, this is the document properties. Okay, and you can also add to these as you want to. The insert a blank page is located here. If we click insert a blank page, it will add to the set. One more thing that I'd like to point out as we're going over the interface and the navigation and the profiles is right here we have the review drop-down menu. Some of the things in this review drop-down menu, like preferences, have lots and lots of other types of preferences. It wouldn't be a bad idea to go through some of these things after you're more comfortable with the software. There may be a couple really cool little hidden things in there that you absolutely love. For example, I personally like the dark theme, but you can change it to a light theme if you like. So again, you can revisit this you know, once you're a little more comfortable with the software. Also available in this review drop-down menu is something called profiles. Now, in the profiles, I have the out-of-the-box profiles. There are review, review advanced, quantity takeoff, and field issues. Anything below there are additional profiles that I've set up for training. Okay. If you click on the review advanced, so I want everybody to do this together. So it's the review drop-down menu, over to profiles, and then click on review advanced. Notice how the menus change, the layout changes. There's more toolbars that we're seeing along the top. Okay, and you can see some on the right, you can see some on the left. You can absolutely set your workspace up however you want. Now, back in 2017 and beyond that, prior to that, I should say, review used to always have 2 panels on each side. Okay, so panel on the right, a panel on the left. This could allow for more tools. So some people today still use the right-hand panel. Now, for me personally, I've gotten used to everything being on the left. The one thing I like about that is notice how you're starting just to lose workspace here. So I prefer to have everything on the left panel. Now let's go to the profile menu and go down to quantity takeoff. Now my quantity takeoff is going to look just a little bit different from yours. And that is because I have custom takeoffs created for a custom class here. But the next thing I want to show you over here is the next profile, field issues. So let's go to field issues. And it's going to, if yours doesn't start up with the tool chest, I want you to click on this little tool chest right here. Okay, it looks kind of like an old school doctor bag or an actual tool chest. And notice that the tools in here are a little different. So what we've just learned is that different profiles can change the interface and how you work. It also contains different types of tools for different types of jobs. Now, this particular tool set and profile would be great for somebody in the field with an iPad or a Surface for doing punch walks. So they're doing job walks, they're opening up their floor plans, and they're popping in these symbols onto their plans, okay? So that is kind of how profiles work. So everybody go back to the review profiles and go over to review and click on it like that. This shouldn't be popping up. It's not going to be on anybody else's. All right, let me think and see if I'm missing anything on the profiles or on the interface. Okay. We've all learned how to open the PDF. We talked about the side panels and the tab access. We talked about the profiles. We will, I'll show you one more thing with profiles. Okay, so up here on this drop down, if we go over to profiles, we're doing this together. We'll go down to manage profiles. And the Manage Profiles dialog box appears. And in the dialog box is the option to import and export. Now, the export is grayed out because obviously we haven't clicked on it. Okay, so we can click on it like so and export it out. Make sure when you do this that the include dependencies is always checked off. One of the things I recommend now, as far as like your workspace being set up, that is something that each person can have individually and different. Some companies actually create a profile with all of the working tools in it, and they distribute it company-wide, and everybody works on the same stuff. Now, you got to decide if that's something you want to do. But for me, I kind of want to have my working space set up how I like it. But one of the things I recommend is that one person take the role of the champion. And if you're going to be creating custom tools, which I'm sure you will because you guys are plan checkers or plan checkers, and create your tool sets and distribute them company-wide. So everybody's using the same type of tools. We'll talk about standardization. I'll talk about that with you, Kurt, outside of the training, because there are other ways that we can go with that. So I can make some recommendations to you outside of the class. For now, let's keep moving on here. We are going to, and now to create your very own profile, you can go ahead and hit the add button. So we'll just do that together now. We'll click the add button. That standardization would help all of us. Yes, yes, the standardization will help all of you. As far as, you know, there are some customization of the tools again that we'll talk about. I don't want to stop or hold up the training on this. But we can do the tools a couple different ways. We can customize them with the person's name, or we can just customize them with like a plan checker 1, plan checker 2 type of thing. Again, we'll circle back to that after we finish here. Okay, so let's click that add button. And now we have the option to give it any name we want. So we could call it, you know, this just because we are doing a City of Ventura class, we'll just call this profile City of Ventura. Again, this is something that you'll have to decide on your own. Now, for example, some people in the AEC industry have different types of roles. One, a project manager does many different things. He does estimation, he does submittals, he does job walks, he does project managers, they do many things. So you could do this either way. You could have, you know, like it shows here, you could have a field issues profile. You can have a takeoff profile. So however the profile works for you, for training purposes, we're just going to make it simple. We're going to call it City of Ventura. Notice how the interface refreshes itself. Still, I've not figured out how to get that guy off. Now you can see that we have a City of Ventura profile in the list. Okay, we could say okay here. Now I want to mention one thing that it did. Whatever profile we were on, which was our review profile, when we created a new profile, it just made an exact copy of it. From this point, we can start to customize the interface a bit. Okay, so we're going to say okay, we're going to click okay. And this guy right here is a glitch, so I'm going to pull him aside. All right, now we can customize our working space for this profile. If I go over here and use this drop down and go over to profiles, you can see that this is the active profile because it has that little check mark next to it. Now, if I wanted to right click on this panel, let's everybody right click on the panel access bar and go over to show. Some of these things you're never going to use, so maybe you don't want to have them on. For example, if you're not going to be utilizing the flags panel, we can turn it off or we can turn it on. And mine is not going off. Oops, there we go. Sorry about that. So to show what's off, it's showing you that flags is now turned off. To right click on it, you're going to need to say hide. Links is also something that we're not going to talk about in this class. So let's right click on it and say hide. If you do like the other bar over here on the right hand side, and you want to move something over to it, for example, the properties bar back, like I said, in 2007 and prior, the properties bar was always on the right-hand side. If you want your interface and your setup to be like that, you can say right, you can attach that over to the right. And that just went a little haywire, didn't it? Okay, so I'm just adjusting this with the Bluebeam here. So again, for me personally, I like to maximize my working space. So I'm going to right click on this and I'm going to attach this back to the left. And then I'm going to drag this up back above the measurement properties, or the measurement, yeah, those are the measurement properties. So I want everybody to do that. So notice how you're able to move these around too. You can click and drag them. You can customize these however you want. This is probably a familiar looking panel thumbnails tool here. This, if you were using, you know, Adobe in the past to view your PDF files, this is a very familiar panel right here. Okay, so what else is there for customizations? Okay, got this. Next is toolbars. So I do also want to show you that if you, over here on the right-hand side, we have the toolbars. We can right-click on these toolbars, okay? And for example, you could turn on File or Edit. If you don't want the File menu on, you can also turn that off, the same way we turned it on. Another way to turn toolbars on and off is to use the Tools drop-down menu and go over here to Toolbars and turn off the ones you want. So the whole interface is completely customizable. I kind of like this one here because I like the undo and the redo options. So maybe you want to have the edit toolbar on. It's completely up to you how you want your workspace to be displayed. All right, moving right along. The only thing left with toolbars that I want to show you, and we're not going to be really customizing any toolbars today, but I want to show you that it's there. If you right click on any toolbar and you go down to customize, it will bring a toolbar up like this. In review, like many other softwares like AutoCAD and Revit, some people may be keyboard shortcut people. Some people are going to be toolbar people, and then some people are going to be drop-down menu tool users. I will say that keyboard shortcuts are going to be the most efficient way to activate your tools. It's less clicks, it's quicker, but it's not for everyone, okay? So here in this customized toolbars, we can turn and edit any of these toolbars we want. Each one of these toolbars here, so it's showing you that in the edit toolbar, these are the items in there. Well, guess what? You can hit this green check plus sign and add a new toolbar. You can call it your name. And you can literally go over to all the different features and functions, and you could drag and drop or add with this button here, sorry. It used to be a drag and drop, now it's this button. You can add any of these tools over here and make a completely custom toolbar for yourself. All right, we're not going to do that today because that's, you know, that's part of the more advanced courses, but I do want to point out that that is something that you can do. One last thing to talk about on this interface section is going to be over here under the review drop-down menu. You're going to see something called keyboard shortcuts. Okay, so if we activate the keyboard shortcuts here, it brings up a menu like this. All keyboard shortcuts will be only one keystroke unless they're combined with a Control, Alt, or Shift. So there's no double shortcuts. Like in AutoCAD, if any of you have ever used AutoCAD or Revit, you can use 2 keyboard shortcuts. Now, for example, this sketch to scale does not have a keyboard shortcut. You can easily click on this bar down here and begin to add a keyboard shortcut. Notice how I put an L in there, and it says that L is currently assigned to the line. So if you wanted to reassign this, you could just click reassign, but then you'll need to go to the line tool and reassign that one as well to a new keyboard shortcut. We also have commands available. So here's all the different types of commands that you can also assign a keyboard shortcut. Okay, you can see which ones don't have a keyboard shortcut already and which ones do. So the customizations can be made to the keystrokes, the toolbars, the interface, lots of customizations that you can do and review to make your very own working space. Okay, so let's see where we're at here. As far as interface goes, that is pretty much everything that I wanted to cover with you for navigations and profiles. So the next part of the class, we're going to be getting into the markup tools. So again, the markup tools, I think those are going to be your meat and potatoes for most of what you guys do. It's going to be the main stuff, and it is for mostly everyone. The markup tools were added in 2005. The software was created by a group of engineers and architects got in on it. And in 2005, it went from a PDF software, a viewing software, to a markup software. And it's grown into so much more since then. Tools can be accessed from the Tools drop-down menu. We have markup tools, stamp tools, measure tools, sketch tools, form tools, signature tools, hyperlinking capabilities, file attachments, and then of course we have the toolbars here. Now, one of the important things I added to the course also, after I had given this to Kurt, was something called page relabel and bookmarks. And I added it, and I took this out of the document management course because I feel like it's something that's very important. Now, most of you, when you receive your plans, you are going to have this already done because this is going to be one of the things that the companies that submit their plans to you guys are going to need to do. But I also want to show you for other uses how this can be done, and let's just all do this together, okay? Access and expose the thumbnails flyout. And we're going to go over here under the thumbnails dropdown, and then let's talk about some of these actions here. These are the places, or this drop-down menu is also similar to the one that you can right-click in here. You can use this, and you can use the document drop-down. There are some extra features in the drop-down, in the markups, the document drop-down list. So let's right-click in here and just show you that you can insert a blank page, extract pages, delete pages, rotate pages, number pages, and create page labels, export, repair, etc. What we're going to do is show you that if for some reason the page labels are not exposed, we can use this drop-down to turn them on, and you could also check the scale of the page. Now, I don't know how often or how much you're going to be taking measurements, but we will experiment with measurements a little bit. And then Kurt, how often do you guys do measurements and measuring in a drawing?
I would have to refer to our subject matter experts on that. Maybe can someone speak
all the time?
to that?
All the time. All right, perfect. Yeah. Perfect. You guys are going to love the measurement tools. They are amazing. Okay, so this is something that you may want to see then. There is a page scale option. This is a new feature that came out in 2019. Okay, so if you're using anything prior to that, you're not going to see this option here. This will show you which pages in the thumbnails tab are turned on and turned off. And the next one over is going to be create page labels. Now, like I said, most of you guys are going to receive, mostly you're going to receive plans that already have this done, because that's just going to be part of the process of people turning plans in to be checked. But there will be those times, and maybe you guys have projects that you have of your own that you want to use, and so this is a good tool, and it's a good thing to have and know. It's actually one of the first things I do when I'm working on a project. So just a little background on myself. Prior to working at Keller Pacific and being a tech support and a software instructor, I actually used the software, and I've actually submitted plans before, and so I've done those jobs as well. I used to model and do 3D duct work. Now I feel like I'm on the other side of the world, and so I don't work on projects too often. But when I do, and it's sometimes I do at Keller Pacific, we have a project department there, and I have to look at plans. I have to jump in Revit and do some stuff and help out a little bit with the project team because I have that background. If I get a set of plans and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like you see on the left-hand side, this is the very first thing I do in my workflow when I get a set of plans. So we're going to do this together. We're going to click on this button here. Okay, that's the create page label. Now I'm going to explain this little pull out here. Yeah, okay, so if there's bookmarks already created, and I'm going to show you guys bookmarks after I do this. If there's bookmarks already created, you can use the bookmarks. Now, this depends, and we're going to go over bookmarks next together. So I will say that the DSA, so I did some DSA trainings with a couple companies, and they have a standard procedure that they require done in Bluebeam, and they do require Bluebeam Extreme. And so you start reading through the DSA plan submittal for Bluebeam, and the very first thing you do with your plans before you submit them is create bookmarks. And in there you create bookmark structures with all the different, sorry, my brain went blank for a second, with all the different consultants. So for example, architecturals, they would go into the architecturals, bookmarks, et cetera, and et cetera. If not, if it's just something that now let me back up a minute. I personally, and this is outside of DSA submittals, I personally like my thumbnails to have the sheet number only. But it is possible to have your thumbnail sheet numbers, not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or the sheet number, but you can also add the sheet title in there. Now it's very hard to read the sheet title in the small little thumbnails that you have. So for my personal being and my personal, I like to have just the sheet numbers on the thumbnails. Now DSA will require you to have the bookmarks with the sheet number, sheet title, and then the thumbnails are created from the bookmark. So again, when we do the bookmarks next, it'll make more sense to you. So for now, what we're going to do is we're going to click on page region. Okay, and we're gonna select right here, and when you do, it changes your cursor, and we're gonna go over to page number 2. We're just gonna click on it like that, and I'm gonna go very slow with everything for the people that don't have double monitors here. Okay, so switch back over to my screen for a second, and I'm going to show you this here. So what we're going to do is we're not clicking anything. We also need to talk about kind of how the zoom and the pan works. So for now, since we haven't really talked about that quite yet, take your mouse cursor, locate the sheet number, and zoom into it with your mouse button. So scroll your mouse button to zoom into that area. The mouse location is going to be the area of the sheet that it's going to zoom into. So that's how that works. So zoom into here. Okay, And along the way, as we start to get deeper into this training, if there's something that you're falling behind or you miss, please speak up or put it in a chat so I know to slow down or back up. That way, that will avoid doing things multiple times. Just be like, hey, I'm a little behind, because I know that online classes is a little more challenging than it is in an actual classroom. But we're gonna make it. We're gonna do good.
How do we zoom in without a mouse scroll feature?
Oof.
So we all need a scroll on our mouse. We need to get the right mouse, but how do you zoom in otherwise?
Okay. If you don't have a mouse wheel, right down here on the navigation bar is a zoom. And I believe if you click this, I'm going to undo my page layout. I'm going to hit escape. So I'm going to end the tool. Whoops. I'm going to hit cancel. You guys do not have to hit cancel or escape. You can just stay in the tool. And I believe this would work just as well. Okay, so you would want to turn your zoom tool on. Notice how the shortcut key is right next to it. It says Z. And just click and drag around the area that you want to zoom to. Definitely got to get a new mouse, especially in review. It will for sure save you time. I mean, there are other ways to do things without having that mouse wheel. Just to kind of talk about some of these other tools for those of you that may not have a mouse wheel. This is the pan, and you can pan around the document. Typically, with your mouse wheel, you can also hold down the mouse wheel. Notice how it kind of, the hand, when I click the mouse wheel button, it grips the paper, and that also allows you to move things around. So these, for you that doesn't have that mouse wheel, these are going to be your go-tos right here. And this is just select, which means if there's a markup on the page, you can select it easier. But we'll talk about those as we get into that. So to kind of go back over here, I'm going to reactivate my page region, and here we are. So for those of you that don't have a second monitor, you're going to watch me do this, and then you're all going to jump around or jump to your other, you're going to flip to your other screen, and you're going to perform this yourself. So here's what I recommend. I recommend drawing a box as far to the left as possible and far to the right as possible. If this box does not highlight everything in it, okay, so this particular sheet may not have numbers over in this right-hand side over here, but other sheet numbers may be a little longer. So you need to make sure you get the whole width of the sheet number area, or yeah, the sheet number area of the title block. Also, just something to consider. If you pull your box down a little too far and you even touch that copyright Bluebeam software, just even a tiny little bit, there's a good chance that you will pick up that text as well. Because believe it or not, there's an invisible text box around that copyright Bluebeam software. So you may pick that up as well. So try to avoid being close to other text. Once you're done, you can release the mouse and it brings up the auto mark. So I'm going to give everybody the opportunity to draw their box around their sheet now. Shouldn't take too long. And then jump back over to my screen. And if you don't get it, just let me know you don't, and I'll back up a step. All right, so coming back over to my screen now, you could see that we've selected region 1. Following region 1, I'm not going to do this, but I'm just going to show you that if you wanted to, walk us through that again. Absolutely. All right, so we have selected this create page label right here, and we chose page region, and then we hit select, and we're just drawing a box around the sheet number here. Now this could be anything. This can be a set of specs, and you want to relabel your specs. You know, maybe it's 1 of 22, 2 of 22, 3 of 22. You can relabel your sheets however. Okay, so once you're done drawing that box, you just release your mouse and you get the auto mark. Now, if you didn't get it that time, just pop me in another little chat. Right now, it's showing you a preview of the text that it picked up. A couple things to consider here is if you're working with scanned documents, these features are not going to work as well or at all. The extreme edition of Bluebeam has a feature called OCR, but I'm going to be 100% honest with you. The OCR is a hit and miss feature. It works great for documents that are scanned, that were scanned with a very very high, I don't even know the word, pixelation, or a very high setting. In other words, if you're working with a scan document and then you scan that baby again and you're doing the whole scan thing and you try to OCR it, it's not going to work at all. So it's best to work with files that have been created from plugins, print to PDF, printed directly from Revit or AutoCAD. Again, most of your stuff is all going to be coming from people that are using these softwares. How do you zoom without a scroll? Joe, is that a new question that just came up?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, how do you zoom out? I've zoomed in. I'm trying to zoom out without a scroll on my mouse.
Okay. Let me finish.
I think if you hold the Control key or the Alt key, it might switch from a plus to a minus.
Yes. Let me finish this window up and then we'll go over to it. So notice the preview. Now we can just click OK, and then it shows you the page range, and then you just click OK again, and you watch it do its job. Now, like with anything, you have to go through this and check your work. Now, if you're doing a very large set of plans, and this right here, so this box we just drew like this, if the text does not fall in the same exact spot, and now I see this a lot with like structural people or mechanical people, their title block's a little off and their text may be in this area. It's not going to pick that up. It's going to give you some weird funky stuff. Now, because this is a demo set, and as we scroll along, you got to check and make sure it looks good. But again, some pages are not going to be, the text is not going to be in the exact same location. And when that happens, what I would do to fix those, so let's just say, for example, that these two structural seats have some weird, funky special characters. It's got like an @ symbol and a square and a D and a box, and I've seen some weird stuff. You could easily hold down the control and just select these two. Maybe you guys want to take a note of this, or just remember that I'm showing you this. You're going to have the training video that you can go back and reference as well, which is something that most people don't have. So in that case, and this is a small set we're working with today, but if this were an actual set of plans, and you may have like 15 different structural sheets in there, what you do is you can do a shift select or a control select. You'd reactivate this. Notice how it has these select page ranges, and you just go back in and redo that one area, or you'd want to obviously go over to the structural sheet, and then you would just redo those few sheets that the text wasn't in the exact same spot as the text. Okay, and then you just say okay again, and then it relabels. I know it didn't look like anything, but that's because this is a perfect set of plans almost right here. Okay, back to your question here. Zooming out, holding down the control key, notice how it changes the cursor. I don't know how to do this without it. Okay, so just kind of, you guys are already challenging me with the zoom. Definitely want to get a, oh, I was going to say you could double click the mouse wheel too. Let me see if there's any kind of, oh, here you go. This is for you. One full page. Click that button and it'll zoom you back out to where you need to be. Okay. All right, so that's the page relabel. And again, you might not use this too much. I'm going to go ahead and turn my scale off for now. And this will visually help you check to scroll through and make sure everything looks like, oh, it works so good. Okay, next up. Next up is bookmarks, and it's just below the thumbnails tab. And again, this is one of the things that the DSA requires you to do before submitting plans is to create bookmarks. So you may be having your companies that are submitting to you, your customers, you may be having them do this as well. This may be part of the process for them rather than doing it yourself. Okay, so creating bookmarks can be done here. So hopefully everybody's following along. We click on the little bookmark icon and then we go over here to bookmarks. We click on the bookmark. It looks very similar to the last screen that we've seen. One of the things you'll notice here is we could create bookmarks off the page labels that we just created. However, we're not going to do that. We're going to do page region again. So let's click on page region. And there are some options available in here to fit to width, inherit zoom, actual size, and fit to page. This is kind of how do you want your bookmarks, when you click on your list of bookmarks in your panel over here on the left, do you want it to be the actual size of the paper? Do you want to have it zoomed into, so you can choose if you want to have it zoomed into a specific area, or if you want it to be fit to the width of the page, or fit to the page. Fit to page is fine. And then we're going to hit select again. And then we're going to roll over down here and we're going to do the exact same thing that we just did. And we're going to click and we're going to drag around this area. And I'm going to give everybody the opportunity to catch up and do that. So again, it was clicking here up in the left-hand corner, the little bookmark icon. We're going to do select region, and we're going to select a region of the title block where the text number is. Now, if you're doing a set of specs or any kind of other drawings, you can do things like this. You can do a space, or you can type of. Okay, so maybe if it's page 1 of 22, or however it works, you can always put something in the middle there. But we're not going to put in of. We're going to put in a dash, and we're going to do another space. Notice the preview right there has a dash and a space. The next thing we're going to do is hit that add button. So we're going to add a second region. And in there, we're going to just highlight this. And again, same things apply. If this box touches sheet title and number, it's going to pick it up. If you just go right around this text and there's text in any other sheet below this box, it's going to miss it. So I'm going to go around the top half. And then again, some of these you're going to have to go back and check. Oh, whoops, I don't know what just happened there. All right, so draw a box around it. Now that's cutting it pretty close to that sheet title and number, but I think we'll be okay. So go ahead and select that area right there, and notice how it picked up the preview. It picked up the sheet title. Then we click OK. And then we click OK again. And on the left-hand side, you're going to see the bookmarks populate. And voila. In the bookmarks area here, one of the things before you, and I know I'm referencing the DSA, but that's the closest thing to your guys' type of business that I'm familiar with. So I apologize if I'm referencing them often. Part of the things that the reasons that it has you do this is to be able to go in and check, because at the end of the day, they require all their plans to be submitted with the links in them. So if you notice, I have 2 sheets here that went kind of crazy. Okay, you see elevations before the sheet number, and then north and east building what? It just, so by creating these bookmarks, it allows you to go in and spot check everything. Make sure they are the same. You're going to go in, you know, these are part of the things that are required before you submit plans. Go in and look at, you see this here? You know, that's obviously not what it's called. So the way we can fix these up is double click in here, and I'm just going to take this and I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to go to the end, make a space, and I'm going to paste it over here. So let's do this together. Do it with the second one. I'm clicking in there, I'm hovering this or highlighting this. I'm using Control C on my keyboard. Most of you will know Control C. It's a standard Windows command. And then I'm going to hit the backspace to erase it. I'm going to the end, I'm making a space, and I'm pasting it in. Sometimes I've seen this on the civil plans. Notice how, and I know some of you right now are working on that, and I'll give you just a few seconds but just kind of pop back over to my screen and let me show you another thing that ends up happening sometimes. Over here on the C sheets, stripping plan, signing and stripping plan. Now, I'm not sure the exact explanation for this. I think it has something to do with the way this was created in Revit, and the text boxes, or they may have had the two different separate lines here, or it may have all been all one text box. I don't have an exact explanation for that, but this is obviously something that you'd want to go in and fix here. So again, we would go in here and and make the modifications. Now, you don't worry about making the modifications to it. Just go in and change the two sheets that have the elevation in front of it. For now, we're just going to leave this. It's not super big deal, but in a real world, this is definitely something that we would want to correct. Now, another thing is the bookmark didn't have anything on this title here. It didn't have a sheet title. So this is something that you'd maybe want to go in and manually put in. It could be cover sheet, could be title sheet. No, well, that doesn't look good either, does it? Let's do that. Something like that. Title sheet, cover sheet, whatever it's called. Okay, so just one last thing about these bookmarks that we're going to talk about today before we start getting in the markups is you have the ability to add in. So if you click on any one of these bookmarks, for example, G0.01, and you right click, you could add one before and call it, you know, general. Whoops. Don't you love when you do that? Okay, so let's do that now. Click on the title block sheet, right click, go down to add, and add a bookmark before and call it general. And I'll give you all a second to do that. Once you have that category or that bookmark there, click on the sheet below it, which is the G sheet. Click it and drag it to the right until you see that little tiny blue dot highlight under general. Okay, this is another thing that the plan submittals to the GSA requires you to do ahead of time, is create this folder structure in the bookmarks here. The next one we're going to do, we'll just do a couple more of this so that it makes sense what we're doing here. We'll right click on the C sheet. We'll say add before, and we'll call this civil. Okay, for the civil sheets. And then click on the sheet below. And for those of you that are working with one monitor, you can, I'm going to give you a few minutes to do this. I'll give you a little time. I'm going to click on the top one. I'm going to use the control key to select both of these. I'm going to click and drag off to the right. As you can see, the little blue dot pops up like this. Now you could do this for all of these. You could do these for the architecturals. You could do these for the E sheets, the M sheets, the P sheets. And that makes it easier to kind of organize your bookmarks. Oh, and I didn't even spell that right. General. Why does that look weird? I don't know. Looked weird to me for a second. All right. Anyways, so for those of you that need a second to create those two areas, go ahead and do that for me now. Okay, so it's kind of, you see the sheet title over there. And we'll take a little break in between class. Typically, we stop halfway through. If for some reason somebody needs to take a break sooner, or I go over, because I tend to do that, I will just run you right into tomorrow if you gave me the opportunity. So remind me to stop for a break, and we will.
April, would 10:30 be good?
10:30 would be good.
Great.
But remind me if I keep going, because I tend to do that, and I just thought, to remind you guys to remind me, just to give you guys a. Okay, great. Okay, so is everybody, so far we've done a couple exercises. Is everybody feeling good about the flow and the pace that we've kind of established with this? And just so you guys know, this is only my second online training. So this is very new to me as well. So if anybody has any problems, please feel free to shout it out now. All right, well, we must be doing good then, because I didn't get any comments.
April, I just wanted to point out something. This was an oversight on my part. It's come to my attention that some of the people in our training might be using an older version of Bluebeam. So that's, of course, nothing we can do about that at this point. But just to bring it to your attention that there may be some folks out there not using 2019.
Okay. Please let me know now if anybody's using anything prior to 2018. Is there anyone using 2017 or earlier? Let me know now.
I believe Sergio might have an old 2016 CAD version.
Oof. Okay. Definitely a different world. Apologize. It's going to be a little bit of a learning curve, because in 2016 and 17, those earlier versions, the interface is completely different. You'll have drop-down menus along the top. Okay, great, perfect.
I think Sergio has downloaded rapidly downloaded. As you can see on the message, he's getting the trial version.
Okay. Yep, that's great. Bear with me then through this first part until you get it.
And that's not your fault. That's not your fault, April. That was my oversight. But
okay.
Thank you for accommodating.
Okay. I will say that if you are following along in 2016, I believe the bookmarks panel in the review profile is on the right-hand side. And the icon, it's going to still kind of look like a bookmark, but it's going to look a little different, but it'll still perform the same actions. So if you're seeing the tools, they just look a little different. There's going to be a bar along the top that has all of the like a ribbon, I would say. Okay, so that's the bookmarks there. I'm going to keep going. And the last thing that I want to show you, just as something that I use, how I personally use bookmarks. If I have a large set of plans here, and there's like a detail sheet or an elevation sheet that I go to a lot, I'm going to right click on it. Oh, and I know some people, I learned this from one of my students, they said, well, I will highlight all of like my A sheets, and I'll right click and I'll turn my A sheets a certain color. And then my, my S sheets, they're a different color. And so that's one way to do it. But for me personally, if there's a sheet that I'm going to a lot, I utilize these bookmarks in a way. For example, if I'm working on a detail sheet, I will right click on the sheet that I need to pop, and I'll go to properties and I'll turn the color on to red or whatever color does it for me. And you can change the style to bold and italic, and then you can say okay. And then as you're working on the floor plan, you're over here doing stuff on the floor plan, and then, oh shoot, I need a reference, and go back to that detail sheet. And rather than reading through this whole entire list, like, okay, where'd that sheet go? And I know this is a smaller list and a smaller set of plans, but when you're getting up there in the 800 set sheets, this one little color makes a world of a difference. And then obviously I could scroll through here and be like, okay, there's my detail sheet I'm working on, boom. And so that's how I kind of utilize the bookmarks for myself personally. Another thing I'll just show you for bookmarks, because we are going to move on, is there are other things you could do here, like editing actions. Okay. Editing actions is part of a more advanced training. What I'll tell you is this is sort of like the hyperlinking or the go-to box. In other words, if I click on this particular sheet, I can jump to a place, a space, or a page. I can add in a website. So if I wanted to jump into the door manufacturer web, when I click on this detail, or this bookmark, I can say I want this bookmark to take me to the door manufacturer for this door sheets, the door detail sheets, or whatever example it is. I can also tell it to open an additional document, which could be anything. Okay, it could be a spec sheet, a submittal sheet, an RFI sheet, lots of stuff you can do here. So I'm just going to hit cancel. I just want to point that out, that's there. And that's kind of all I wanted to go over with bookmarks. Again, the bookmarks and the thumbnails, this is something that I added to this class because I felt it was important. I'm going to make a couple small adjustments to the basic trainings just in general, because that page relabel is super handy. Can somebody tell me, when you typically get a set of plans, it has this stuff done in it already, right? Or that's my first question. My second question to go along with that is there ever any documents you are working with that do not have the page label? And anybody can answer. No? Yes? No? Maybe?
Don't forget to unmute.
Okay, well.
It's usually, we just started using Bluebeam for reviews, so
okay,
we don't know yet.
Got it. Perfect.
We started like a week ago, so
okay.
we figured out the
Good
measurement
answer.
tool. That's how far we've gotten.
All right, good job. Okay, that's cool. That was a good answer. Thank you for that. Well, then I'm absolutely glad that I added these two things into the course for you guys, because it will be a handy feature for you. And you guys will have a copy of this training, so if you need to go back and look and see how it was done, you guys will have that. Okay.
You should make it a requirement for anyone submitting, just like DSA, but then they're going to call us and ask for help on how to do it. So it's good that
absolutely, yeah. The DSA has a pretty good written out. It's on the internet. It's available for everyone. I would I would take that and maybe copy some of it or make your own or add to it. Just having these bookmarks, there's typically like 3 plan checkers. And so I actually have like a DSA submittal class that we do, and And rather than having architect, contractor, and engineer, we have plan checker 1, plan checker 2, plan checker 3. So it's definitely a document that I suggest having a look at. Okay, so that is the auto mark, page label, and bookmarks. And again, that's something that I do as soon as I get a set of plans, because it drives me bonkers seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, I can't do nothing with that. I need to have numbers over here, or sheet numbers that I can work with. Okay, so the next thing we're going to get into here is going to be the markup tools. The markup tools, again, are going to be something you guys are doing a lot, especially if you're working, you know, with sets of plans. You're going to need to go in and make comments, you know, move this, do that, do this, RFI here, what's this, what's that. So that's what we're going to cover now. So the markup tools are available here. We're going to focus on the main ones here. We have different categories here. We have the shape tools, the arrow and the line tools, the pen tools, and then we have these text box tools here. Again, the tools are available over here on the right-hand side, and they're also available in the tool set. Now, yours may look just slightly different than mine. I'm gonna hide some of these and turn these on and off just to kind of make it look exactly like yours. This is the My Tools tool chest. This is for quick access to tools. I've added a few extra tools in here. Yours are going to be probably 1 through 7. And we haven't added any tools, so there's nothing in the recent tools list yet. Before we get into talking about the tool chest, we're just going to talk about, you know, some of the tools. So use the thumbnails tab, and let's go over to sheet A1.1.1. And we're going to just kind of, you know, you could zoom into any area around here. Actually, sorry about that. Let's just work over here in the top corner here. I want to show you some tips and tricks along the way. And I typically start right up here. First up on the list is the markups drop-down text box. We're going to talk about the properties of the text box. One important thing I want to point out is just directly next to the tool, like that toolbox text has a T right next to it. That is the shortcut key on the keypad. Now, I'm telling you, it is so much quicker to learn the keyboard shortcuts for the tools you use the most. Now, because you guys, because you guys are probably going to be utilizing, you're going to probably use this tool set a lot more than you're going to go up here, okay, and hit a T and start the T. You're probably going to have something similar to, now, do you consider, some of you are going to be considered plan checkers, right? Is that most of your titles? Kurt, you can answer that one for me. I know there's a large group in here and not everybody's a plan checker, but for the most part, yes. Yes, okay. Thank you, Louis. This may say plan checker 1, plan checker 2. This may, you may be even able or want to say plan checker Luis, or is it Luis or Louis? I think it's Louis. However it is. Or Kurt, either. Okay. It could be plan checker Kurt, and that could be, everybody can have their own toolbar, and then as I highlight over these, you see it say architect. It may just say plan checker 1. These you guys are going to work out on your own. But if you're not using a toolbar, or I'm sorry, a tool set, you're definitely using the text box tool. So let's activate the text box tool. And I'm going to just kind of zoom in to this area of the sheet, and I'm going to draw a text box, and it looks invisible right now, but I promise you it drew it to the size that you clicked and dragged. Now, notice along the top, the dynamic properties bar is there. I'm a lot more comfortable with this dynamic properties bar because I kind of already know what everything is, but in a sense, you know, this is a little more clear what it is, but it kind of makes sense up here too. So along the top, we're just going to start from left to right. One, we can go in here and customize the color of the actual text box around the text box. The next one over is going to be the line opacity. You can choose to lower it. This is the line opacity. You know this because you're hovered over it. The next is the line style. As you hover over these things, it's going to tell you what it is. So you really don't need this properties bar at all. Okay, so you can have that closed and you can go along the top. You can choose to customize your text box however you want. You can change the line weight. How thick do you want it? And that doesn't look like a dash text box now, does it? Oh, I got a glitch in my software. Come on. Oh boy. There we go. There she is. All right, sorry about that. And just in case if you click outside of your text box, you can always click back on it and double click to reactivate it. Okay, so just, you know, going along here some more, there's a fill color that we can add. There's a fill opacity that we can change. There's a shape. We can make it a circle, a triangle. I'm going to keep mine at a rectangle for now, but keep in mind that there are other tools that you can create using this text box. For example, if you want to start RFI triangles, you could use this text box and you know, you make a triangle. You can make it a tool. Usually I would recommend the sequence tool for RFIs. The next one over is the font. You can go down to the font style, the font size, the font color, the font alignment options. Okay, so you can make lots of customizations to this text box right here. So in there, I'm just going to call this text box for now, like that. So everyone draw in a text box, type in the word text box or whatever you want, customize the text box however you want. It doesn't have to be pink and purple and yellow. It could be any other colors. And then click away from it like so. And so I'm going to give everybody a few minutes to do that, especially for the people that only have one monitor. All right. And again, if you're more of the type of person that wants to use this properties bar over here, you are absolutely able to do that. Now, while you guys are drawing and customizing your properties of your text box, I just want to mention a couple things. The customizations in this tool set, like for example, the architect review and the contractor review and the engineer review, it's important to customize the subject of your markups, especially if you're going to be, you know, utilizing the plan checker type of system. And again, there may be different people in your office that are doing different jobs, but this subject box is very important right here. Notice how right here you have the subject text box. This subject is also available in this properties, dynamic properties bar. And you're also able to do this down in the markups list, which we're not going to get into now. But what I would like everyone to do is go in here and change this text box. We're going to just say plan checker 1, okay, like so. Or whatever you're going to be calling yourself. It may be plan checker Kurt or plan checker Luis. The subject is important, and you're going to find this out when we go back and and start working in the markups list. You're going to know why this is important. Okay, anyhow, I think everybody should have a text box now, and you've customized some of these properties. And so I'm going to move forward. I want to show you two really cool little features with this text box. One is the right-click menu, and I teach this in all my classes. The right-click menu has secret hidden gems in it. And I say this because it's Revit, AutoCAD, Bluebeam. There is a lot of good stuff in here, a lot, okay? We won't be able to go through everything, but just in your free time, as you get more comfortable with the software, there's some things in here you'll want to experience. Some of the things we're going to cover, so don't worry about it. But auto size text box. When I show this to people that have been using Bluebeam for a few years or even a few months, I get a lot of, oh, ah. It's also available up here on the toolbar. I had one lady one time say, oh my God, April, I actually sit there after I write in a text box and I grab all these grips and I adjust my text box like that. And she's like, that is so great. And she just thought that that was the greatest little tip. So that's one of my little tips that I show off in my lunch and learns as well. The next neat thing over here is the auto size text, which means as I scale my text box up and down, the text goes along with the text box. Now, once I've gotten my text box and my text to the size that I like, I can right click here and then say auto size text box. So I would like everyone to do so now. I would like you to auto size your text and then kind of flex your text box a little, just for practice makes perfect. And if you actually are able to do it, it'll be easier to remember. And then auto size that like so. Now, I hope everyone has a pen and paper handy, because I have a couple other little hotkeys and short keys that are what I consider my little tips and tricks. A lot of people love my tips and tricks. If I wanted to, can you please show us how to title the box? Title the box? Do you mean like add the text? So adding the text would just be double clicking.
No, how do you change the subject of the title box?
Oh,
How do you open
the
it
subject.
to change the
Sorry,
subject?
yes, absolutely. Okay, so with that selected, there's two locations to do this. One is going to be in this drop down on the properties bar. You can just change the subject here. And two, you could do it in the properties panel right under subject, like that. Okay. This could be something you click along, or for those of you that have one monitor, you could just watch and then give it a try, but take a little note of this. These are my shortcut keys. So if I want to make an exact copy of this text box, rather than right-clicking and saying copy and then saying paste, if you click on the text box, so first thing you're going to do, hold down the control key, click on the box, and drag the box. That will give you an exact copy of the box. Pretty cool, right? Okay, so then make a couple copies. Again, it's click, drag. Control, click, drag. Now let's say you wanted to make, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I can't change the color of the text. It keeps defaulting back to yellow text, and it's driving me bonkers over here.
Okay, let's see. How about try clicking away from the text box completely? I know exactly what's going on. Then you're going to want to click in the text box. And you know what? I've noticed that. And I feel like that's a little glitchy thing because I really should be able to click on this text box and go over here and make it say purple and do that. But I don't know why. I have seen on some people's machines, you may want to give this a try. Click inside the text box and highlight the text and go up here and change it with the text highlighted and then click away. And then let me know if that doesn't work.
Well, I don't have any text in there. That's the problem.
Oh, okay. So,
well, and now it's okay. This is driving me nuts here. I'm sorry.
okay. Well, that's what I'm here for. Do you have a text box, right?
Well, I did, and now somehow I got into something else here. So let me get back there.
Okay. One thing that may help you is see down here, you have these, you might have your mouse cursor always defaults to pan, which makes it a little harder to select things. It's not impossible, but it makes it a little harder. So the default shortcut key is V, or you can click right here. That sometimes makes it easier to click things. You probably have a text box there and you just didn't customize any of the properties and it's completely blank. So try to click.
So now I've got the text box back.
Okay. Double click inside of it.
So I double clicked inside of it and it defaults to a yellow font color. And so when I click on black font color and I go back, and as soon as I start typing, it goes back to yellow.
Okay, type it in yellow and then highlight it and change it to black.
Okay, you know what? I just figured it out where I had the text box properties open and I went down and changed the text color on the text box properties as opposed to up on the toolbar. And that did it. So anyways, okay, continue. I got it.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Awesome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, so with that text box, once you get some text in there, I want you to hold down your control key and then click and drag one of the text boxes to make a copy. Now, I'm gonna add to this right now. Yeah, that works great for if you want to pull a text box somewhere else on the sheet, right? But let's just pretend that I wanted to have a couple text boxes and I want them perfectly straight when I make the copy. If you hover over the copied one that you have, or any of them really, now we're going to add a key to this. Hold down the control, hold down the shift, click the text box, and it makes a perfect copy in a perfect alignment underneath it. Okay, so that's my other little tip. So the shift key and the control key are really the main hotkeys in this software. Okay, they do wonderful little things. Now, if you guys all have a few different text boxes here, okay, so make sure you have a few different ones that are not lined up straight. I want to show you another one of my favorite things that I like to show off when I do my lunch and learns. And I'm going to be honest with you, I get a lot of, ooh, I didn't know I could do that. Awesome. So that's why I like to show some of these tips and tricks. Now, if everybody has these text boxes, I want you to make sure that your mouse cursor is on select, not the pan button, but the select button. The default shortcut key for that is V, so get used to typing in V. It's not saying that you can't select things with the pan, it's just saying we're making it easier to select things. We are going to actually draw a selection window around all of those text boxes like so, and it's going to highlight them like that. So I want everybody's multiple text boxes highlighted like so. Once you do that, you can right click. Okay, so here's what's going to work. Whatever text box you want to use as the one to align the rest to, for example, aligning to the left I want all of my text boxes to be aligned to this left here. So I'm going to hover my mouse cursor over the top one and right click. With them all selected, I'm clicking on the left alignment in the right click menus. And remember, I said this, there are neat things in this right click menu, and we will get to most of them, but not every single one. And then we're going to choose align to the left. And again, when I do this in my lunch and learns, I get a lot of ooh. The next one we're going to do is see the spacing here. Let's say I wanted to distribute them evenly. Again, hovering over the one that I want to acquire the space from the one below. If I wanted them spaced out this far, I would hover over this one. I'm going to just hover over the top one. Again, we're going to right click. We're going to go alignment, and then we're going to go down to distribute vertically. Now that moved that one, didn't it? I think it moved from the space to the next one. But you get where I'm going with this, right? So a lot of people really like those alignment options. So I like to show those off as well. Next up, so.
And by the way, April, we are right at 10:30. If this is the time, good time for you to take your break. Take a break.
Yeah, this is actually a great time to take a break. I need to use the restroom anyways and refill up my coffee. Would you guys like to do a 10-minute break or a 15-minute break?
Is 10 minutes all right with you?
I'm good with whatever you guys are good with.
Everybody, should we meet back at 10:40?
10:40 it is.
Very good.
Okay, guys. See you soon.
The room will stay open, everybody. I'm just going to pause the recording and resume it when we come back. Well, before we get started, I thought I would just ask everybody, how's it going so far? Are you, hopefully this is the pace good? I know April already asked that question, but.
Yeah, seems good to me.
Good, all right. April should be joining us shortly and we can resume.
And I'm back. Sorry about that. It took a couple minutes extra.
No problem. Hey, April, before I turn over, I just have to let you know that the meeting, of course, is being hosted by my session, but I'm going to have to step away at the top of the hour for a meeting that goes until noon. So I'll be driving hands-free until 11 o'clock to noon. Hopefully I'll come back sooner than that, but I won't be there if you're looking for me. But I have a meeting with my boss. So
okay, no problem.
Run for another 15, but then don't worry about it when we reach the end of the hour. As soon as I'll come back and I'll wrap the meeting up, technically.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Thank you, April.
Okay.
Turn it over to you.
You're welcome. Okay, here we go. Okay, so we just learned about how to align these text boxes here, and we don't actually need 5 of these text boxes, so I'm going to highlight a couple of them and hit the delete key on my keyboard. I do want to leave 3 of those because we customize the properties of the subject to plan checker 1. I would like to leave that here like that. Let's get back into let's get going with the markup tools. By the end of today, I would like to at least get through. I'd like to get through the tool chest and start beginning to talk about the markups list. Typically, okay, so we got 3 3-hour sessions. Okay, my bad. We will probably end right around stamps today. Is the first day. It usually ends around stamps, and that's where we'll most likely end the today's session. Okay, here we go. So just like the typewriter, excuse me, the text box, we have the typewriter, the note, and the call out. Just to kind of talk about the typewriter tool, I want to just show you that with the typewriter tool, the typewriter tool works really good for if you're filling out forms or documents that have locations differently. Now the typewriter tool, you can customize the properties to look exactly the way the text boxes do. So we have all the same customizations going on here, okay? The neat thing and the difference about the typewriter tool is this, is if I go over here and I want to click on it, notice my cursor has the 2 little lines. That's showing you kind of the alignment of where the text is going to start. So if I wanted to go over here and make a note to please, whoops, I keep doing that. Caps lock is on. I'm going to turn my caps lock off. Please update this room number, something like that. Now I can always change the default properties of this type. Uh-oh, something went on and off. We're still connected? Yes, we're still connected. Okay. The neat thing about the typewriter tool is I can just jump over here and start typing over here and something like add detail. And feel free to add a couple of the typewriter tools. Once you hit escape, you're done, okay? And so you have a tool, a markup, a typewriter markup over here, a typewriter markup over here, and these properties can be customized individually. So if you did want to throw a line around it or change the text style to something different like this, you could do that. And again, it works just like the text box tool. Okay. With that, I do want to show you guys one other thing. If you are utilizing the typewriter tool, which I'm not sure, I'm not sure what tools you'll frequent. But if you did customize some of these properties right here, for example, I changed the font and I changed the line style. And the very next time I go up and I start the typewriter tool again, notice how the default settings go back to Courier and black as the, actually there's no line color right now. That's an empty color. And I start typing, it's going to default back to the Courier. Okay, so let me show you, and I forgot the T there. But let me show you how, let's say the next time I start up my typewriter tool, I want it to be a pink line, and I wanted it to be a different type of text. Hi, gorgeous. Mommy's working, okay? You gotta Mommy will be done at 12, okay? Ooh, there's like mommies, huh? Okay, go back out of the room. Give mommy her office. Thank you. You are. Okay. Work from home.
Yeah, we all know what it's like.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay, so where was I? Let's say, for example, the next time I start back up the courier or the typewriter tool. Again, like I said, the right-click menu has little hidden gems. There is an option to set the default. So I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to go down, and I'm going to set the default. Okay, now the next time I go up to my tools and I activate my typewriter tool, it's going to remember the settings that I set as the default. Okay, and that works with other tools as well. I just wanted to mention that. If you're not utilizing the tool set, I'm going to go over here. So if you guys added, if you've added the typewriter tool, which I hope everybody has at this point used the typewriter tool. I want you to go over and change the subject of of any one of those typewriter tools. I'm gonna caps lock again. I'm gonna call this subject plan checker 2. Okay, plan checker 2. So everybody do that now. Okay, somebody left. It's okay. One of the things I want to point out right now is this. If you're not utilizing the tool set, notice how I went over here and I made it say plan checker 2, and then I used this drop down and went down and set the default. So that means the next time I use this typewriter tool, notice how on the left-hand side, the properties say subject plan checker 2. That's one way to get, if you are a plan checker 1, plan checker 2, plan checker 3, or how many ever you have, you can utilize the default settings. Okay. So just 1 or 2 pieces of typewriter are fine. It was basically the exercise of this particular tool was to show you that the default settings can be changed for the next time's use. Okay. And just for the sake of time, we are going to just talk about note. And some of these we skip over in a class. If we went through every single one of these, we could spend the rest of the day or at least a few hours on just these one set of markup tools. So we're going to skip over some of these. I'll just mention that this note, you literally just pick a port on the sheet and it adds that little icon and it adds a little flyout for you to type in a little note. And then once you close the note, it goes back to that little icon. You guys may have seen this in other pieces of software. The call out one is definitely the next one that we're going to talk about because it has also a right click menu thing that is really, really neat. So let's activate the call out tool here. Matter of fact, you know what I want to do? I have an idea. Let's hit the escape key for a second, okay? So everybody hit escape and leave from the call out tool. I want you to go over to the tool chest here. And I want you to go over to the Architects tool set. And I want you to go over to the call out tool, which is this one right here. And we're going to go over to one of the restrooms, or really you really can do this for anything. I mean, if you're not following along with the exact markups that I'm making, that's fine. I'm going to point over here to this restroom, and I'm going to click and drag, and then I'm going to place my area, and I'm going to type check ADA. There we go. Just like so. And again, your right-click menu, I can say auto size text box. It pulls the text closer to the call out. So everybody add that call out now. Again, you don't have to type the exact same thing as I am. I just like to reference the check ADA compliance. This might be something you guys use a lot as plan checkers, as well as like the Cloud and the Cloud Plus. So where I'm going with this one is one of the things I like to show off here is the ability to add a leader. Now, I've had people in my classes that use review, and when I show them this, they're like, "Oh my God, April, I'm so glad you showed me this because I didn't know that option was there to add a leader." And what some of the people will actually do is they'll go over to the markups dropdown and they'll add an arrow manually, and they'll just tie it back to that call out. So again, we can go in and add another leader. And the same way we added the leader, we can right click on the leader and delete the leader as well. Okay, so that's a really good handy one to do. And if anybody didn't get that, please make a note and say, you know, I didn't get it yet. So we'll move on to the next one. Next up is obviously the pen tool. It's not a tool that I use very often. The pen tool is, you know, obviously just, you know, try to sign your name like that. Poof. All right, so I'm not going to really, really? I've never noticed that right there. You see how I hover over that squiggly and it says why? I have no idea why. That's kind of funny. Okay, so back down to the tools drop down. I need to get I remember to get my humor in here too, because that's one of my things I'm famous for, is making stupid jokes. Okay, so the next one I want to show you is the highlighter tool. Now I've changed my default highlighter tool to the cyan color. For the highlighter tool, this is a tool that I want to talk about because you guys will probably be utilizing the highlight tool. Notice how, as I get close to text, my cursor changes. That's because this document was created with a plugin, or was a print to PDF, or it was created in Revit or AutoCAD or whatever file format. So it's a vectorized document. And the way I know that this is a vectorized document is if I zoom way into one of these numbers, it's clean. It's very clean. And that's how you'll know the difference between a scanned document and a vectorized document. Is the the scanned documents will have little pixels and little squares, and it'll be very blurry all around the numbers. And those are the documents that are going to be harder to work with. You guys, to be honest with you, you're probably not going to be dealing with a lot of scanned documents that people are turning in for plan checking. It's kind of a requirement that everybody, that's going to be another one of your requirements. You're going to want to make sure that everybody's using a nice vectorized set. Don't let those civil guys give you a scanned drawing, because they'll try to pull that on you. I know they will. Hopefully there's no civil people in there right now. Anyways, again, so because this is a vectorized document, it recognizes text. And sometimes what I just did happens. And when that happens, and I don't have an explanation for that, just hit the Control-Z. That's the undo button. One of the things that I found, rather than going from the bottom left to the right, let's start that again. So I'm going to start my highlight tool, but this time I'm going to go in this direction, and it did it again. Dang it. All right. Try it again. It's kind of sensitive. Boom, there we go. So just highlight one piece of text here, like so. Again, if you accidentally highlight the whole thing, it's a little sensitive. Just hit that Control-Z and undo all the highlights over the sheet. And then what I want you to do next is I want you to go over to your tool set. And this time I want you to go over to your contractor review tool set. And again, the reason why I'm kind of jumping around with this tool set stuff is because this is all leading back up to the markups list, which you guys are really going to be utilizing. Snag the highlighter tool over here, and I'm just going to kind of go over to where this column is, and I'm going to hover my highlighter with my highlighter tool active, hold down the shift key, and click and drag. What that just did by holding down the shift key is it allows me to make a highlight in a perfect straight line. Okay, that is one of my tips and tricks, is that shift key. Remember it, write it down if you have to. Where I'm going with the shift key next is I want to tell you that with the line tool, the arc tool, the arrow, arc, polyline, dimension, rectangle, ellipse, polygon, the shift key works with all of these. Now, for example, if I'm drawing a line, right now I can draw a line at any angle, but if I hold down the shift key, it will be a perfect straight line into a straight line, like kind of in an ortho direction there. Okay, so it's limited on the degrees that it has. Okay, you don't have to actually draw in a line. I just kind of wanted to show that off. So let me go back to, hopefully everyone was able to add a highlight using the contractor highlighter. Okay, so that's the two here, and then obviously the eraser, it just erases the markup, but I'm not sure why that's not working. Come on now. My eraser's broken. I could easily just delete this by clicking on it and deleting it. I still want to know why that's, okay, so it worked for the highlighter. That's weird, it wasn't working for the line tool. My apologies for that. Okay, let's back up. So that's kind of how those tools work. The next one here that I want to kind of go over, obviously the line tool and the arrow tool and the arc tools, they do exactly what they say. The polyline tool can be used to do multiple clicks, okay, like so. If you utilize the polyline tool and click and drag, it'll make a box here. So go ahead and add the polyline tool and click and drag anywhere and make a box. I want to talk about the grips of the markup here. So get a box in there. I'll give everybody a second to do that. So with this blue one, it will change the size of the shape. With the yellow one, it'll change the shape of the shape. And that's going to be how those grips work. And if you notice, every single type of markup is going to have grips. Not all of them are going to make it bigger. Okay, so notice how the blue one for some of these tools are going to make it larger. But obviously the highlighter is something that you can stretch up, but it doesn't have grips to change the shape. And that's kind of an obvious one. Just want to throw in one extra little thing here. If I wanted to make this an arc, I could right click over that and I could say convert to an arc, and that'll put some grips on here and allow me to then begin changing the shape. Okay. Next up for the markup tools is I want to talk about this dimension tool. This dimension tool is not a measurement dimension tool. Okay, so what I mean by that is if I click on that dimension tool, I could go in here. Now, I want to point out one thing. Notice how right now it's not snapping to the corner of that. This is where now, let me back up. With some of the measurement tools, or actually most of the measurement tools, it will automatically turn on a snap for you. But with this particular tool, let's just say I wanted to snap to that corner right there. Down here on this status bar we all turned on together is something called snap to content, and it's the third one over. So I would like everyone to activate that dimension tool and then turn on down below snap to content. And you know that it's turned on because it's highlighted in blue. And then again, I apologize for my graphics. We have not been able to make peace with each other no matter how hard I've tried. But yours will be much bigger, but there is actually a snap that snaps to that end of that corner. Okay, so now I can snap to another corner. I always use my shift key for this. So I'm going to hold down my shift key and I'm going to come to the next corner and I'm going to snap it like that. Now I can say something like, I don't know, let's see, what would I say? Adjust spacing here. Something like that. Okay. So add in a width. So again, this dimension tool is not a dimension. It is specifically there to show the width of an area of the plan, and it's meant for text. Please, please, please do not put an actual measurement in here. You see the spacing here? Don't fudge it in. Don't manually type in and say this is 16 feet. You don't want to use that dimension tool for that because that can really throw people off. Or since you guys are the plan checkers and people are going to be submitting your plans, you may say something like, please adjust the spacing here to 16 feet, or, you know, please change out the doors, or you guys will know how to use this tool, but don't use it as a measurement. All right. The next thing I want to talk about here, like all the other tools, you can totally customize the properties and the arrows and everything else that goes along, like the text. Okay, so you can make the text smaller or smaller or smaller or bigger or larger or whatever. Okay, so I'm going to give everybody a second to do that, to add that dimension there. All right. Is anyone else not hearing the presentation? Oh no, Joe. I hope you guys can hear me because I've been going on here for quite a few minutes. I know Kurt said he had to leave. You're back. Okay, sweet. Good news, Joe. Hopefully you guys didn't lose me for too long there. Just to kind of recap, if I lost any kind of vocal connectivity, again, this dimension tool here, this is not used to take dimensions. This is used to communicate the width or the dimension of an area, okay? So again, click on it and go ahead and adjust it. I'm going to show you, let's pretend like I wanted to take that text out of that line, right? So I will hover over the text and hold down that shift key and click it and drag it, and then I'm able to pull it out, and it adds a little leader. Okay, I want everybody to do that. Hover over the text, hold down the shift key, and drag out the text. Some of you that might have this happen, and if that happens, just say Control Z and also want to show you with this dimension selected, you could click and make it longer using the yellow grip, okay? And then you could also rotate the text by using the blue grip. Let's just say you didn't like the leader on this particular dimension here. You could easily go over to the properties here. Oops, properties right here. And click on it. And go scroll down to this area right here and uncheck show the caption leader line. How in the heck did I just change that? Let's see, let's go back. Boop, there we go. All right, so if you didn't get that because you may have been working, you activate the properties and you go down here and you say show caption leader line. Now with this one selected here, I want everybody to scroll up to the properties either here or here, and I want you to take out the subject dimension and I want you to type plan checker 3, like so. All right, everybody should be kind of at the same place as I am. I'm going to go back to tools. I'm going to go over to markups, and then another couple really great ones of these. Rectangle, ellipse, and polygon, they are the shape tools. Cloud and Cloud Plus are also the shape tools, but let me just kind of show you the rectangle tool for a minute. I'm going to go over here, and if I draw a box, I can make a rectangle, but if I hold down the Shift key, it makes a perfect square, okay? So go ahead and do that. Create a rectangle anywhere on the sheet, hold down the Shift key and make it a square. And then just to kind of show this one off, you don't actually have to do this one, but the ellipse tool does the exact same thing. If you click it and you hold down the Shift key, it's going to make a circle. And again, all these properties are also available here as well. All right, so those are how the shape tools work. I'm going to give everybody a second for that as well. Now, I also want to show you just a few little extra visual settings that some people like to mess with. Underneath the view drop-down, you have a ruler. I personally love my ruler on. I always have my ruler on. And I've seen a few people here or there like the crosshair on their mouse. When I work in AutoCAD, I absolutely always have the crosshairs on, okay? When I am working in review, I don't always or ever really use my crosshair. Again, it's one of those optional things. But if I wanted to draw a circle around this call out here, I could use my crosshairs to kind of align up, you know, the quadrant points of the circle and draw a perfect circle around there. Okay, and so what I did is I just lined up the left line. I still have not figured out how to turn those off. I can align the left line, you know, the quadrant, the left quadrant, and then the top quadrant of the, and then click and drag and hold down the Shift to create that circle around there. I'm not a fan of turning and keeping the crosshair on all the time while I work, only when I need to do something like what I've just showed you there. Okay, so that are a couple of visual settings there. Next up for the markup tools are going to be the Cloud and the Cloud Plus. You guys will probably use this often. Okay, rather than using the Cloud Plus over here, I'm going to go back over to the tool set, which I would like everybody to do. And I want you to go down to the engineer tool chest here. And what we're going to do is we're going to choose the Cloud Plus call out here. So we'll click on that. And we'll just kind of make a note around here. Whatever notes you want to add, that's fine. I'm just making stuff up as I go, to be honest with you. All right, so everybody should have added a Cloud Plus from the Engineer Review tool set. The next thing I want to show you is the cloud tool. We're going to just do a standard cloud tool outside of the tool chest. And again, the reason why I'm skipping around like this is because this is all leading back to how to really utilize the markups list. So just keep going with me, guys. Down to the cloud tool, we're going to do a cloud tool. And maybe we want to go somewhere over here. And this is a cloud without a call out. So the cloud plus has a cloud plus a call out. That's why we call it the cloud plus. Okay, so everybody add a cloud here. I'm going to show you one additional trick here that's available. I want you to click on the cloud that you just added, and I want you to give it a fill color. So fill it up with whatever you want. And when you do that, it adds one big blob like this. Let me also show you one thing that you also have the ability to add a hatch. Now, I'm not sure how customized you want to make your clouds, but you absolutely can do stuff like that. One more thing I want to talk about, and this is kind of in more of an advanced setting of a class, but manage, you are allowed and able to create custom hatches and custom line styles. Okay, that may be like a separate type thing. If you guys want to get into that, we could do like a little workshop later on down the road where we get into customizing toolbars, line sets, and hatch patterns. So where I'm going with this cloud here is if we click on this thing right here, and there is this highlight button right up here. Now, for the one gentleman that's using review 2016, all these things are going to be available over here in your properties. So you're going to be using the properties to follow along here. And see that highlight button? That's the same as this button here. So if you click that, what that does is it highlights the content of the document. Okay. Yes, you absolutely could change the opacity, which will also show you the content on there. But if you did want it at 100% opacity, you could just use that highlight content button right there. Okay. Let's see what's next up for the markup tools. Okay. Attaching an image. I'm not sure how much you guys will be using this feature, but let's just keep going with it. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to add a call out. So follow along with me. Tools, markup, call out. I'm going to point over here to this wall and I'm just going to say wall crack, like so. All right, so everybody add, and it doesn't matter what wall it is, just point to a wall and say wall crack. All right, guys. With this drop down, and again, if I go too fast for any of you, please shoot me a chat or tell me that I'm going too fast. I don't want anybody to feel like they're falling behind. Okay, markups list or markup drop down. Going over to the image flyout, we got from file, we got from camera, from scanner, and crop image. Let's just start with from file. And it's going to open up we're going to locate the desktop image folder. Desktop image folder, I'm sorry. The desktop folder with all of our training files. And under images, so I have a folder in our training files called images. And we're just going to go ahead and click, you know, the wall issue 2 or 3. It doesn't matter which one, it's your choice. And then you're going to say open. And here's how this works. If I double click my mouse, it's going to bring that picture in at full scale, which is going to make it huge. And some of you might accidentally do that. But I'm just going to click and drag and add a little image to the sheet like so. This is totally adjustable, by the way. Okay, and then there's a crop image option. If I wanted to crop this little image, I could shorten it up like that and crop that out. Whoops. Crop image. Yeah, it's not working. There we go. That one's a touchy little tidbit one. Okay, moving right along. I absolutely do not want to see a picture on my plan. I just don't like it. Okay, so there's another thing that you can do. This is a really neat little trick. This is great for people who are out in the field and they're doing job walks and they want to communicate back with the office, but they don't want to add a picture with their iPad or their Surface or whatever they're using to the sheet like we just did. We could click on our call out here that says wall crack and right click on that baby. And just like I mentioned before, the right click menu has really cool stuff. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to go down to capture. And if I wanted to take a picture of myself or use my iPad, so if I said from camera right now, it's going to turn my webcam on and it's going to take a picture from my camera. It could be forward or rear facing depending on what type of computer or Surface or iPad that you're using. I'm just going to go ahead and save from file. And I'm going to go back to my desktop and go into my training files and go to my image folder. And I'm going to select multiple pictures. So I'm just clicking and dragging and then saying open. When you do this, it adds a little camera icon next to the, and I always get in my classes, April, can I move that icon? No, you cannot move this icon, but what you can do is auto size the text box to be closer to it. And depending on if this was from left to right, it would definitely move that little icon. So rather than having this ugly old image right here on my sheet, I have this little camera icon that I can double click on and it opens up my camera viewer. The neat thing is it'll allow me to go through a set of pictures. So you can see that is the wall crack in 2 different locations. That's a very unfortunate wall crack, isn't it? With this option here, we also have the option to take an additional picture or add to it, delete it, and also export these out. Okay, did everybody get that on their call out? So basically we just added a call out, we right click on it, we go down to capture, and then we save from file. Is there anybody that's not able to follow along? Anybody? Going once? Going twice? Sold to the highest bidder. All right, so we must be doing pretty good then. That's good news for me. Okay, the last little bit here, I mean, PDF content, you could obviously create hyperlinks, straight throughs, underlines, squigglies, review text. Flags, it's just a flag an area, and I'll just show you real quick. I could, add a little flag here and then write a little note on this flag. And whoops, there we go. Wow. Come on, T, get it together. It'll add a little note over here, and then this list starts to accumulate your notes. It might be something you utilize. I'm not sure. You guys will have to collectively, decide if it's something you want to use. But then you'll just see little notes, and you can auto size that little note too, like so. Neat thing about notes is you can hyperlink. You can hyperlink it to another location. You can really hyperlink anything, to be honest with you. All right, so that has its own little call out and fly out of its own. So that was really those are really all the markup tools and the little tips and tricks and customizations that I wanted to show you. We're going to switch over to the measurement tools. And so I did hear you guys say, a few of you say that you guys take measurements and use measurements all the time. So it's definitely something we're gonna get into next. We're down to the last half hour. So I would like to get through the most common or mostly used measurement tools. As you can see, the measurement tools, we have calibrate, length, poly-length, area, perimeter, diameter, center radius, 3-point radius, angle, volume, and polygon cutout and an ellipse cutout here. The count tool and the dynamic fill. Ones that we're going to skip over are going to be volume, 3-point, center radius, and diameter, and perimeter. They basically do the exactly what they say. They'll give you a diameter and a radius and so on. Some of the more important commonly used ones is length, poly-length, area, count, and dynamic fill. And then I'll show you how these cutouts perform as well. So with that being said, we're gonna let's everybody go over to the thumbnails tab here. And let's just go to the next sheet over. And let me make sure there's no scale on that page already. So notice how there's already a scale set on this page. I don't always trust the scales of the page. Okay, so the scale there's no scale on that page. One of the things you always want to do before you start taking measurements is calibrate the sheet. Now, new in 2019, if a scale is not set, for example, the C sheet has a scale that's not been set. If I go over here to my tools and I go over to measure and I go to length and I say 0, now I like to hold down my shift key and I click right there, it will not allow me to add that length tool. So anything previous to 2019, it will give me this, notice how it says 0 right back there? It will keep it at 0 until I calibrate the sheet. But now they've added this new feature in where you absolutely have to calibrate it before it'll give you that measurement. So that's just something to consider. New in 2019, they've added the ability to have the input, okay? This is a preset list, like, for example, 1/8 inch equals a foot, 1 inch equals a foot. That is not the recommended best way, but sometimes you're going to get a plan that doesn't have a dimension, that doesn't have a scale, like this particular sheet right here. And if it doesn't have a scale or a dimension, but in the very corner of the bottom right hand of the screen or the title block, it has the scale of the sheet in the title block, you can use the input to manually select. But Bluebeam still recommends that you calibrate between 2 points. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to calibrate the sheet using that scale. And so if there's anybody who's not following along, let's do that now. Let's jump over to sheet C1.08 and go to your tools drop-down menu over here. And you can either A, go straight to your calibrate, or you can B, pick the length tool and put a length tool right there. Actually, I take that back. Go with option B. Please use your tools, go to your measure, and pick the length tool, because I want to show you how after we calibrate that, it automatically changes that length tool. So that'd be a better thing to do. So once you're done, we're going to pick 2 points. So together we can pick 2 points. We click OK. We go down here, and with this tool, it automatically grips to it. even if we had snap to content down on the status bar turned off, it's still going to automatically detect that. So click. My graphics are really off again. So hold down the shift key. I always hold down the shift key and click again. Okay. So don't mess with these settings. What you're going to want to do is the one that's highlighted. You're going to want to say this is 60 feet. Okay. Just type in 60. There is a precision. So you can change this to whatever you want. And you can also apply this to multiple pages. Now, I know that if this were just a few sheets, then maybe applying it to all the pages would be fine. But I have different sheets in here with different scales. So I'm going to say just the current. I'm going to say apply, and then it adjusts my measurement, my length tool like so. So now I've accurately measured this scale of this sheet. So 3 inches is equaling 60 feet here. Okay. Let's go ahead and jump back over to sheet A 1.1.2. We're going to go over to the scale. Now I could see that the scale is off here. So I'm going to show you another way. We also have the 1/8 inch equals a foot. If I wanted to go over here and do the calibrate, I could say okay, and I could do it that way. Another way, I just hit escape. Okay, so it said pick 2 points, and I hit escape, and it popped up this menu here. I could go over to the presets drop-down list, and again, this is a 2019 feature, and I could say 1/8 inch equals a foot. It's still the best practice to accurately use the pick 2 points. Okay, so I'm going to hit cancel here for 1 second, and I'm going to back up. If I don't have this information available on the sheet, one of the things you can do is use a dimension. Sometimes there isn't a dimension on the sheet. Then I would default to using like the width of the door, okay, 36 inches, as long as you know that the door is 36 inches. Now, one other tip I have for that is the farther the distance of the 2 points that you click, the better and the more accurate measurements you're going to get. So, for example, if there was no scale to use on the bottom of the sheet down here to scale it, and you have a second choice to use a dimension, I'm going to use the 2 points of this dimension. So I'm going to go measure, calibrate, 2 points, and I want everybody to do this as well. Click on there. I personally like to hold down the shift key and click there. And in here, I'm going to say 22 feet 2 inches, and I'm going to apply that scale like so. Notice when I do that, the scale of the sheet also updates. If I go into my tools and I go to measure and I say length, I can verify that measurement like that. And again, I'm hovering over the text, holding down the shift, and clicking on that. Again, you could also drag this up with that little grip, like so. Does anybody have any questions? So far, so good. Going once, going twice, sold. Next up, 2 other locations where you can access the scale is to click right over here, and then you can change the scale like so. And then also over here. So either on the status bar or the navigation bar down below, and then you can change the scale there too. I personally don't trust any scale that comes in on the sheet, like this, for example, here. This sheet was not properly calibrated by me personally. Whoops. So I'm just going to verify. Yeah, I'm just going to verify with the length tool. There's what you got. See? That's exactly why each drawing should be calibrated by you personally. Now, if you don't want to manually do each one of those sheets one by one by one by one, you have the option when you go into the scale, pick 2 points. Okay, you can go in here, click there, hold down the shift key like so. You can choose more than one sheet at a time. So if you know that sheet A 1.1.0, A 1.1.1, and A 1.1.2 all have the exact same scale, you could apply a custom range. Okay, but you're going to need to know the sheet number. So like 5 through 10 or whatever. Now, where you're going to find the sheet number is right down here. Okay, that's your little go-to for when you need to know what page you're on. So I can see that I'm on page 5. It's the one that's highlighted on the left-hand side of my thumbnails tab. So if I wanted to apply this to more than one page, I could say, 4 through 6 or whatnot. So you can apply this to a custom range. Okie dokie. Let's go back over here. We're going to do some of our measurements here on A 1.1.2. I hope everybody accurately calibrated their sheet. One of the ways that I've showed you, again, picking 2 points is going to be the biggest, the go-to for you. Okay, measurement tools, drop down. Length, polylength, area, perimeter. We just learned the length tool. So next, let's talk about the polylength tool. The polylength tool is used a lot. And one of the examples of what we do with the polylength tool is we create custom piping tools with the polylength tool. As you noticed over here in the tool set, we have some general properties or general measurement tools here. If I jump over for a second, and you guys, I'm just wanting you guys to watch this for a second. Some of you may not even be working along. You might just be watching, and that's fine too. If I go over to quantity takeoff for my personal profile here, all these plumbing takeoffs were all created with this polylength tool. And if I click on my medium pressure gas polylength tool, and let's just say that I wanted to go from this room over here, and I'm holding down my shift key to keep a straight line, and I'm going over here, and then I'm going over here, and I'm clicking and clicking. And don't worry, we're all going to create a polylength tool together. I'm just showing off how these settings here have been made medium pressure gas, and in my markups list, it says medium pressure gas because my subject is medium pressure gas. One of the things I did for this particular type of plumbing takeoffs is I created a custom column for the size, so I can go down into my markups list and tell it what size I want it to be. So that's one of the examples of the polylength tool. So let's just jump back over here. And so let's do polylength together. So tools, measure, polylength. We can go over here or anywhere. Okay, we're just practicing with the tool. I'm just gonna click from this dimension, and I'm gonna hold down my shift, and I'm gonna click there, and I'm gonna click there. And when you get to a point where you're done, and I know I was just using the dimensions, and that's fine. So I'm gonna hold down the shift again, and I'm gonna hit double click to end. When you double click and you end it, it will give you the overall total length of segments. That's these segments added up. So this is a total of 42 feet, 3 inches. One of the things I want to show you with the properties of this polylength here is if we go over into the properties here. Okay, so I know some of you are following along. And again, if I'm going too fast, please back me up. Okay, so I have the polylink measurement selected. And if we scroll down here, we have some options here as far as visibility, because if you're using this to do takeoffs and you're kind of like an estimator, and you have, for example, you have multiple piping close to each other, you're not going to want to see all these numbers, okay? Just a bunch of jumble. It'll get very hard to read. So you have the option to, one, turn off the caption, which is the overall length, and two, the segmented values. So whenever I'm doing takeoff classes and we're creating custom tools, I typically like to leave the segmented values off. I don't need to see what every space is. Depends on how you're using the tool. May be different for different types of things. Like the conduit, for example. If you're doing takeoffs for conduit, which I know you guys are probably not, the conduit is very close together. So if I have multiple of these, and it just turns into a hot mess with the text. So maybe you don't even want to see any text. You just want to utilize this as a takeoff, and your markups list is where all the information is going to be on this. Okay? So everybody get a polylink measurement in there, like so. Okay? Anywhere you want. It could be anywhere. All right? So another thing that we is a typical, we have perimeter too, and it kind of works similar to the it works similar to the polylink tool, but the difference here is it's going to give you a total length. It's not going to have the segmented values turned on by default. So if you want to see the perimeter, and again, it's very similar. Now the difference between the perimeter is it has the grip to make it larger. Okay, and if you notice, if I go back over to the polylink tool, you don't see, actually you do see those. It just works a little different. Let me tell you one other thing about this particular measurement tool here. A lot of the times if you're doing like piping takeoffs or whatnot, I'm going to turn back on my segmented values here just for a minute and my caption. Okay, I want to show you how this works here. Typically, I tell people to put the little dot in between each different type of fitting. If this were an estimation class, and I know this isn't an estimation class, but there may be times where you need this information that I'm showing you here. So in between each grip is a segment. Let's just say that I decided this, and if this were a piping takeoff, I'm going to move it away from my dimensions because it kind of takes away from what I'm talking about. And I wanted to split this off and make it another size. That is why I would do the additional clicks here. I could right click on this segment and say split it off, and now it becomes its own separate takeoff. And notice how the overall length updates. If you modify and move these grips in any way, it will also update. Okay, so they're all connected except for this piece because I've split it off. Let's just say you decided that you wanted to pick up right where you left off, which is right here. I wanted to continue on and keep going. You could right click on this little grip and say resume polylink measurement. And then you can continue on and then double click to end. And then your overall length is going to update as well. Okay, pretty good stuff, right? Okay, and then again, in just like I split off that one piece, I could split them all off, and then I also can I can reset the caption position. Okay, just another little note about this. I can rotate this if I wanted to, like so. And then one final little thing I'm going to say about this is I can also choose to align these all horizontally, like that. All right. Next up is going to be the area measurement tools. So let's go ahead and go over to the measure tool and go down to area. This is a very common tool. Let's just locate one of the rooms here on this plan. It doesn't matter which one it is. Let's go ahead and do one that is a perfect square or rectangle rather than having this little piece here. All right, the way this works is we go up in the top corner, we click, we drag, and we release, and it gives us an area and a square footage. Now, with that tool still active, because it is still active, if I wanted to do this, click, 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 double click to end. So that's how we would do that. In reality, I would absolutely never do the click, 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 click. There was a really awesome tool added in 2017. It's called the dynamic fill, okay? And I'm gonna jump over to the dynamic fill now. We're down, I just glanced at the clock, we're down to the last 15 minutes. So I would like to have gone over the count tool and the dynamic fill tool within the next 15 minutes. So following the measurement tools is going to be the stamp tools. And so that's kind of my expectation for ending today. So let's go ahead and go down to the dynamic fill. You can also activate the dynamic fill using the J on the keyboard. Now, dynamic fill is a really, really cool tool. I was super excited when this came out. I remember doing this. I remember trying to start this tool and I kept hitting the apply button and it kept erasing everything. And it was so frustrating that literally I jumped out of my chair and was like, woohoo! I was so happy when I figured out this tool right here. I can't tell you how much of a happy dance I did. Okay, so let's talk about how this works here. Now, let's say we have an odd shaped room. I want to go over to the thumbnails tab. So everybody follow me over to the thumbnails tab. And scroll up, and we're going to go over to sheet A1.1.0. And on A1.1.0, we have this area with a ramp. We are going to use the dynamic fill, so hit J on your keyboard to pop the dynamic fill back up. In the dynamic fill, there are some properties in here like boundary size, and fill speed. Yours may look just a little different. There's some edge sensitivity. The colors are absolutely pointless unless you just want to be fancy and change your colors. But here's how this works. If I try to use my fill bucket to paint in this area, I want to get an area. I want to get a square footage of this ramp right here. But, excuse me, right along the bottom here is a opening. And I'm gonna, if I try to fill it in, it's gonna spill over. So I'm gonna take this boundary line and I'm gonna go along the bottom here. And I'm going to click on this corner. Again, I hold down the shift key for any time I'm doing anything that's dealing with the straight line, and double clicking to end. And that's closing up that opening right there. All right, so for those of you that are following along, go ahead and add your boundary line on sheet A1.8.1 along the bottom of that ramp. Again, J was the keyboard shortcut that we used to get that bar along the top, the dynamic fill properties. Okay, and then we're gonna do this fill bucket here. And we're gonna just select, and mine's filling up much faster, but yours will go a little slower because I've changed my fill speed. and just kind of wave it around until it fills in the space. And like I said, when I was first learning this tool, I thought I did it. I was so happy. I hit that apply button and then boom, it went away. And I was like, what the heck just happened? I probably did it at least 20 times until I figured out what the heck I was doing. Things that we can create in here are spaces, polygons, area measurements, polylength measurements, perimeter measurements, and volume measurements. So I could absolutely click the perimeter measurements and find out what the perimeter of this ramp is here. But what I'm really after is the area measurement. So with the area measurement, you're going to want to click on that. This is clicking the default area measurement. If I use this drop down over here, this is picking up, these default properties are picking up the area measurements that are in this tool chest. If I were to switch over my profiles to my quantity takeoff profile, in my list, I would have my flooring, and then I can automatically assign my flooring. But for now, I'm just gonna click on it, and if it's highlighted in blue, it's active, and then we click OK, and it tells me the square footage there. So everyone do that now. If you were not following along, go ahead and do that. And I'm not sure, I know one of you said you had one monitor, so I'm very curious to know how it's been going for you, but we'll wait till after class and maybe we'll have a little like 5 or 10-minute session of how everybody felt about the first days of training, because I'm very curious to know how this is working for everyone. All right, folks. So that is the dynamic fill. Just to kind of show you the capabilities of this feature and of the software, I'm going to delete this for a second, and you guys can just watch for this, for those of you that are following along. I'm going to go over to the quantity takeoff, and I'm going to fill in this space again, and I'm going to say I want to add concrete here. Okay, so I'm going to take my magic wand and I'm going to wave it in here like so, and this time my drop down is showing you the custom tools that I have over here. So I'm going to go over here, oopsie, and I'm going to say flooring, and I'm going to say concrete, and I'm going to apply. Now I have concrete, and I have the square footage. What? Okay, honey, let me finish. I'm almost done, okay? And then I'll make you lunch. We have the square footage here, and I also customized what I would like the concrete to look like with a hatch pattern. One of the things I want to show you that I've done with my flooring tool is if I go into the properties of my flooring tool, it is grayed out because I have it locked. So let me unlock it. Oh, FYI, just keep that in mind. If you're sharing tool sets and your tool sets are located outside of the normal area where the tool sets are saved on your desktop and your computers, the tool sets are going to be automatically locked and they're not going to let you adjust them, but it's very easy to unlock them. So let me just go over to the properties for a second. Really? Come on. Yeah, hold on. Measurement properties. Why is it still grayed out? I just unlocked the toolbar. Okay. Anyways, where I'm going with this is in this tool, over here I have this custom column of responsibility. If I create a custom column called cost, I could build the cost right in this tool, and as I place the area measurement, it's also putting the cost in there. Okay, so I'm gonna circle back with this for you. So that's the power of the dynamic fill. It's a really cool tool. A lot of people absolutely love this, especially architects and people who are doing estimation. They just absolutely love this. Just to kind of beef this up a little, let me move my go-to assist window. Well, I want to just point out that there are some updates that they've added into this. So if you're using anything before 2019, you won't get this actual units thing. But now you can go in and actually change the depth Now the depth has always been available. If I go in and change the depth to like 3 feet, and I go over here, how do you change the line weight on the boundary? Great question. Thank you. We're clicking on the area, and the line style and the line weight. I think that's what your question was, is how do you change the, let me go back to the question. How do you change the line weight on the boundary? Yeah, perfect, exactly. So right next to the line weight, and then again, if I go back to the properties over here, the line weight is also available right over here in this area. So that's how you change the line width of the boundary. All right, guys. Any more questions? Okay, let's work on the last most commonly used measurement tool. And if any of you, want to experiment with the ones that we skipped over, unfortunately, if we went over every single tool, we would need way more time. So, I mean, these do exactly what they say: a diameter, a 3-point, a center radius, an angle, a volume tool. The volume tool is absolutely just like the area tool. I'll just kind of show you. You could go in here if you wanted to take a volume. Right now, this page has not been calibrated, which is why you see 0 cubic feet here. Surprised you even let me add that measurement. But just to kind of pick up right there, the depth here, I could go into this, the depth. Oh, that's why it says 0, because it has a 0 depth. So if, say, I want it to be 2 feet, it'll update the cubic feet like that. Well, that makes sense. Why is this? Oh, nice. Sorry, guys. Let me undo that. There we go. So that's how the cubic feet work. Okay, guys, last one I want to show you. You can go to any one of these sheets that have a restroom, so we can continue working on A1.1. I don't know why that just erased my markup, but that's okay. Let's go over to A1.1.1.1. Let's zoom in to the restroom area like so. This is one of my favorite tools to kind of show off. It's called the count tool. So tools, drop-down menu, markups, count tool. This is a very popular one as well. Let's just say I wanted to count up all the sinks in the men's restroom. I could use this count tool, and again, if I hope you're following along. Again, if I go too fast, just remind me. I would like to know how many sinks are in the men's restroom, and I want to tie this back to the markups list, because at the end of the day, when I create a summary report, I want to know, hey, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sinks in the men's restroom. I'm going to hit the escape key, and when I hit the escape key, it leaves the count tool. Now, one of the things you can do is create custom count tools. I'm going to throw in some extra stuff here, and I'm going to show you that there's other ways to create count tools, and I'll go over. I might run out of time for today, but let's just talk about this for a second. Going back to subject here, we're clicking on these 5 check marks. So this group of counts. Up here on the count subject dropdown or the properties, either one will work. Rather than saying count measurements, I'm going to type in sinks. Actually, I'm going to say men's sinks. So I know that in the men's restroom, there are 5 sinks. Okay? Let's pretend like there were lots and lots and lots of sinks. And I accidentally forgot one. You can always take one off by saying delete from the group. And if I accidentally forget one, I can say resume count and pick up where I left off and continue on and continue on and continue on. So I'm going to hit escape, and I want everybody to do the same. Okay, let's try that again in the women's restroom. So everyone go to tools, down to measure, and over to count. And let's do the same thing in the women's restroom. Add the counts, and then hitting escape to end. Notice how when I hover over, it highlights and tells you there's 6. We're going to go up to the subject. Oh, also, we could have changed this subject before we even started laying out the count measurements. Okay, women sinks. And again, how you customize your markups and the subject is completely up to you guys. All right, so that is the famous count tool. Tomorrow, I'm going to show you a way to visually search your documents without using the count tool. It's really, really cool. It's called Visual Search and Count. And rather than manually going through each page and counting it up, there's a speedy way to do it, kind of like the dynamic fill, and I think everybody's going to appreciate that. Okay, so a couple things that I want to kind of just make sure I don't forget is this poly cutout. You guys can just watch this and take a mental note of this. If I have an area in here, and let me try to look and see where. Okay, the polylink cutout works like this. Let's just say I have this room, and I have somebody left. That's okay. Why is it saying 0 now? Interesting. I know I calibrated it. Oh no, this has not actually been, this is not the sheet we calibrated. Okay, so let's do so. Let's calibrate it again because I just picked the wrong point. And I'm going to say 16 feet 10 inches like so. And I'm going to hit enter. The way the poly cutout works is like so. If I have an area of a room, and let's just pretend like, which would be very poor design, let's pretend there was a little call out, or I'm sorry, a column over here, and I wanted to go in and take that, you know, trace over that little column. Maybe there's a column in there, boom, and that'll automatically remove that area. So that's called the polygon cutout right there. And the neat thing about this, like if you're taking an area of a roof and there's skylights and you want to minus out the skylights, but you also want to know the square footage, you could go in here and take the area tool and pop that in like that. So that's 18 square feet that was taken out, or I'm sorry, 1.8 square feet. So we are on the hour right now. We are absolutely to the point that I wanted to be. Tomorrow we will start with applying stamps. We may refresh in the morning with some of the markup tools. I want to open it up to everybody. So I'm gonna see, I kind of want to recap with everyone. I want to have a little group discussion if everybody's feeling up to it. How was your day? Did you have any struggles? Were there any challenges? I know some of you may have been following along and other people may have watched it more of a presentation style, but if anybody can share any comments with me, that would be absolutely great. Hi, Kurt, I see you're back.
Hi, yes, I'm back. I was wondering, since I came back, were we able to address Ian Livingston's question about how to change the weight line on boundary?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Sorry, I missed that.
That's okay. That's okay. And if he didn't get it, I mean, I did show him a couple times. It was a challenge to keep up. Okay, so let's go back. It was a challenge to keep up. I'll hold my comments for the team to be able to comment first. Yep. So anytime that I'm doing something, what we'll do is Sometimes we'll tell you to click along, but maybe what we'll try for tomorrow will be everybody watch me do it, and then you do it, and then maybe collectively add up some things that we did today, and you know, kind of write them down. And in the morning before when we start at 8:45, and when we start at 8:45, we kind of go over some of the things that were unclear today. And then, so Scott says he's using a 32-inch monitor, and it worked fine. Okay, that's great. Great.
Nice feedback. Yeah.
So yeah, in the morning we'll have a little collective group conversation and you know, address anything that you've seen today that we need to go over again, or et cetera, et cetera. And I'm also willing to do, like I said, we could do like a little hour-long maybe follow-up in a couple weeks too, to kind of answer any questions that you guys have. Making a software like Bluebeam become a new standard procedure, it could be, you know, a little challenging. The good news is Bluebeam looks like a very overwhelming software, but at the end of the day, it's actually one of my favorite softwares because it's very easy to use. If you compare it against something like Revit, such a complex software, once you get all the bells and whistles down and you learn some of the little tips and tricks that I'll show you along the way, you guys are just gonna absolutely love it. I know it.
Wonderful. Well, does anybody have any final questions for April before we call it a day?
Videos of the training will be valuable. Recap of the following tools will be valuable. Scale, measurement, text box, and callouts. Hour-long training with smaller groups would be valuable. For standardized tools, setups will help. We will absolutely, when we get into the tool sets, we have a whole section on the tool chest that we will do tomorrow. So we will talk about standardizing some and creating your very own custom tool sets. So we will cover that too.
What?
Will you get a list of, yes.
Go ahead, please.
I was just going to say, you'll get, at the end of this, we'll have all of these things recorded in the chat log, right? Is that part of it?
Yes, well, the videos I will compile and make available to everybody, yes.
Okay, great. Anything else, guys?
April, thank you so much for a very helpful day. This is a very, very good pace, I think, and we covered a lot of information, and you clearly have imparted a lot of knowledge to us that we'll have to digest. Everybody, I'm going to go ahead and, after this meeting's done, I'll render the videos. I'll make them available to us later, but otherwise we'll meet again, same place, same time, tomorrow.
All right.
8:45, we'll work out the technical bugs for a prompt start at 9 a.m.
All right, guys. See you in the morning. Thanks for a great first day.
Thank you, April.
You're welcome.